Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 518. Alaric arrives in Zerkith. This greedy woman. Donovan forced an ugly smile on his face. I accept your terms, your majesty. If his majesty disagrees, I will beg him if necessary. Although giving in to her demands would nearly drain them of their resources, it was better than having Estania take their lands. Good. I will send 500,000 warriors to Harun, including 3 venerables. That should be enough to defeat the Estanian army and retake the cities they captured. The Empress stated calmly. Donovan grimaced. So stingy. She asked to double the tribute I offered and even wanted 3 cities to be given to Veronica, but all she could send was just this. He wanted to tell her to add more troops, but he felt that it would only displease the Empress. He could only swallow the words he was about to say. Thank you, your majesty. We will never forget this favor. Donovan did a fistpalm salute. Iskila waved her hand and said, If there's nothing else, you may leave. You can speak with the Grand Commander if you have more questions. Hearing this, Donovan subconsciously glanced at the gray-haired old warrior standing beneath the throne. This old man was the Grand Commander of Veronica. He held the highest number of troops in the nation. He was a mythical knight and also the most loyal retainer of the Empress. Lord Donovan, let us talk somewhere else. Please follow me. The Grand Commander made a hand gesture. Donovan nodded. This old man should be easier to talk to. Maybe I can convince him to add more troops and venerables. He thought to himself as he followed the old warrior out of the throne room. A moment later, he was taken to a pavilion outside the imperial castle. He could see the back garden and a man-made lake just a few dozen meters from the pavilion. The sight was beautiful and calming to the eyes. This pavilion is where Her Majesty relaxes her mind. The Grand Commander spoke with a smile. It's beautiful, Donovan remarked. The Grand Commander chuckled. The two silently admired the scenery before the old warrior broke the silence. Your situation is urgent, so I will make this quick. I will arrange the 500,000 warriors and the 3 venerables that Her Majesty has promised. It will take some time before the troops will be gathered, so you might have to wait for a week. Hearing this, Donovan hesitated before he replied. Lord Grand Commander, Estania has 3 venerables on their side, as well as hundreds of thousands of highly trained soldiers. The Grand Commander frowned. Get to the point. Donovan cleared his throat. What I'm saying is, even with the troops that Veronica will send, defeating the Estanian army will still be difficult. Maybe you can add more to guarantee our victory. The Grand Commander sneered. You want me to defy Her Majesty's orders just to accommodate your request? Speak of it again, and I will have your head this instant. Donovan could sense the old man's aura skyrocketing. The mana around them fluctuated vigorously, as if a volcano was about to erupt. What a strong aura. Just based on his aura alone, Donovan realized that the Grand Commander was significantly stronger than him. Please calm down, Lord Grand Commander. Donovan raised his hands with a wry smile. Forget about what I said. I merely said it out of desperation. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. He explained with a sigh. The Grand Commander recalled his aura and snorted. I will forgive you just this time. He then stood up and muttered. I am no longer in the mood. My subordinates will take you to your accommodation. Stay there and wait for my news. Without waiting for his response, the Grand Commander left decisively. Looking at his back, Donovan's eyes flashed with rage. There will come a time when you will regret humiliating me like this. Meanwhile, in Zerkith, the Estanian army was fortifying the city's defenses. They placed numerous traps outside the city in preparation for the incoming Harunian troops. However, despite all the preparations, Lucas felt that it was still not enough. Should I request support from the Crown Prince? He thought, but he quickly abandoned the idea. Even if he requested support from him, it would take weeks before the Crown Prince's troops could get to Zerkith. Suddenly, he felt a strong aura rapidly approaching from the sky. He lifted his head and narrowed his eyes. This aura. Just then, he saw the familiar figure of the draconic lion zooming past the clouds. Lucas also noticed that there were people on its back. Zephyr! He exclaimed, his eyes flashing with excitement. Zephyr was a catastrophe-grade beast with heavy firepower. Its flames were so powerful that they could kill tens of thousands of warriors in just a matter of minutes. The troops in Zerkith were stunned when they saw the huge beast coming towards the city. To prevent chaos from spreading, Lucas signaled his troops not to worry. When the beast got closer, they realized to their relief that it was a draconic lion, the tamed beast of House Silversword. In the next moment, the draconic lion descended in front of Lucas while emitting a powerful roar. Roar! Its beastly voice resounded across the city, scaring the residents. Whoosh! How have you been, my lord? Smiling faintly, Alaric jumped off Zephyr's back and walked towards his father. The 5 people who came with him followed him quietly. Lucas looked at his son. He was no longer the immature kid that he was years ago. His shoulders were now broad, and he had this kind of temperament unique to authoritative figures. His son, Alaric, was now a man, someone that he could count on. Lucas felt proud. I didn't expect you to come here. You even brought Zephyr and these people. He noticed an unfamiliar face among the 5 people he brought, but he didn't bother to ask. He knew that Alaric would explain it to him at the right time. Chapter 519. Alaric challenges Lucas. This isn't the right place to talk. Follow me to my mansion. Lucas invited. Alaric nodded. All right. Before leaving, Alaric said a few words to Zephyr. You should rest, buddy. We have so much to do in a few days. The draconic lion emitted a soft sound. The group followed Lucas to his mansion. They rode a carriage that took them to the center of the city. After half an hour, they arrived in front of an old mansion. It was surprisingly modest for a venerable, but Lucas didn't mind. He was only here temporarily, so he didn't bother to find a bigger and more luxurious place. Lucas took them to the study room and gestured for them to take their seats. Would you like some tea? He asked. That would be perfect. Alaric nodded. Lucas sent a knowing look to the servants, who immediately understood his intentions. While the servants were brewing the tea, Lucas chatted with his son. Will Midgard be all right without you around? Alaric smiled faintly. It should be fine. I left Ivana to handle the administrative matters. Galanor is also there to protect her. Even if something happens, I'm sure they can take care of it. Lucas nodded. I see. Ivana is the princess of the Greenwood Kingdom. Handling a city should be easy for her. With Galanor protecting her, unless a venerable shows up, she will be all right. Alaric chuckled at his father's words. If only you knew how worried she was to take the job. A few minutes later, the servants served the newly brewed tea. My lord, I believe you already received the letter I sent. Alaric changed the topic. Lucas furrowed his eyebrows and gestured at the servants to leave the room. After they left, he responded. Indeed. The troops in Atarkan also sent me a letter, so I was able to make preparations early. Alaric took a sip of tea before he spoke. 500,000 soldiers will be difficult even with all the preparations, but there is a way to quickly defeat an army of that size. Hearing this, Lucas raised an eyebrow. Looking at his father's curious expression, Alaric continued. We just need to eliminate the commanders of their troops. They used this method to defeat Ramondan's army. An army without its commanders would be like a headless fly. Lucas rubbed his chin. Your plan is feasible. Killing their commanders should be easy since we have Zephyr. I don't mind doing the killing too. As long as they could win, he didn't care what kind of methods they used. The only problem is if a venerable is leading them, Alaric stated in a grim voice. Lucas frowned. There are only 2 venerables left in their country. One has gone to Veronica to seek assistance and the other... Hold on, do you mean their emperor is leading that army? He was shocked. He didn't consider this possibility. After all, the emperor is the most important person in a country. If something were to happen to him, the entire country would collapse. Usually, the emperors would never take action unless their empire was facing annihilation. Alaric nodded solemnly. Who else could command an army of that size? Moreover, the imperial guards of Harun are moving with that army. He had discussed this with Matilda. The latter strongly believed that the emperor was leading the Harunian army. Lucas let out a heavy breath. If Arsientis is really commanding that army, eliminating him will be difficult. That guy is more than a century old and he has been a mythical knight for a long time. I think he might be stronger than Ramondan. Do you think you can hold him down, my lord? Alaric asked. Lucas shook his head. Individually, he is stronger than I. I'm not confident enough to fight with someone like him, but if I join hands with Zephyr, maybe we can kill him. Alaric let out a smile. My lord, your son will join this fight. With the significant increase in his attributes, he felt that he could fight with a venerable. Although he hadn't tried it yet, he felt that it was possible as long as the enemy's attributes weren't that much higher than his own. Lucas didn't like this idea. Absolutely not. Do you think defeating a venerable is easy? He shook his head, his voice cold. You might have grown powerful, but your strength is still lacking against a venerable. Just stay out of this fight. I will handle Arcientis with Zephyr. How about you test out my strength? You might change your mind once you feel it yourself. Alaric challenged with a confident smile. Lucas was taken aback. He didn't expect his son to suddenly challenge him. You want to have a spar with me? Alaric nodded. Trust me, my lord. I'm not as weak as you think. Looking at his son's serious face, Lucas scrunched his eyebrows. All right, I want to see what makes you so confident. He stood up and said, Follow me. There is a training ground behind the mansion. Hearing this, Alaric nodded. You guys don't need to follow and don't let anyone near the training ground during our spar. He didn't want his spar with his father to go public. There might be spies lurking, so they had to keep this information from leaking. Yes, your highness. Soon, Lucas brought him to the training ground. The venerable wore simple armor and grabbed an old steel sword. He stared deeply at his son and said, You better not disappoint me after boasting like that. Alaric equipped his newly forged shield and unsheathed his short sword. I will show you my progress, Dad. Seeing his choice of equipment, Lucas raised an eyebrow. From what he remembered, Alaric was a dual sword wielder. He rarely used a shield. Do you think a shield can help you win against me? Lucas smiled faintly. Alaric didn't fall for his taunts. The usual rules. No using mana. Fine by me. Then let's begin. Chapter 520, Proud Father. Lucas didn't waste time. He charged towards Alaric and swung the steel sword. He didn't use any fancy technique or impressive footwork. It was just a simple downward slash that looked as ordinary as it could be. Whoosh! Alaric didn't dare underestimate this attack. It looked simple on the surface, but behind this seemingly ordinary slash was the strength of a venerable. He instinctively lifted his shield at the right moment. Clang! Lucas was a bit surprised. He didn't put his all into that swing, but it still carried enough force to overpower a transcendent knight. The kid isn't all talk after all. He thought to himself as he prepared for another attack. This time, he added more strength and delivered a diagonal slash aimed at Alaric's shoulder. Clang! Surprisingly, Alaric was able to defend himself again. Again, Lucas raised his eyebrows in shock. He used 50% of his strength in that attack. It was a swing that could obliterate an ordinary transcendent knight. Dad, you need to use more strength if you want to defeat me. Alaric chuckled. He was amused to see his father's shocked expression. Lucas snorted in response. He repositioned himself and made a quick dash to Alaric's side. He thought of using the blind spot to catch his son off guard. But to his disbelief, Alaric seemed to have anticipated his move. He jumped backwards and lifted his shield at the right moment. Clang! This time, Lucas knew that it wasn't a fluke. Since when did this kid learn how to use a shield? He finally got serious and treated the spar like an actual battle. He didn't want his son to put himself into a dangerous battle, so he planned on making him realize the gap between a venerable and a transcendent knight. With ghost-like footsteps, he appeared like a blurry figure in Alaric's eyes. In the next moment, he released a combination of slashes and stabs. Alaric squinted his eyes and put his entire focus into blocking and deflecting the attacks. Clang! 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 This SS rank shield mastery is so amazing. Lucas couldn't even touch his clothes. Alaric effortlessly blocked the attacks and he deflected those that he couldn't. Lucas didn't even realize it, but he was subconsciously exerting more strength with every move. However, Alaric managed to miraculously defend himself against all his attacks. Narrowing his eyes, Lucas instinctively used his full power to thrust his sword. Whoosh! The steel sword moved like a serpent, zeroing in on Alaric's chest. Seeing this, Alaric gritted his teeth and decisively put his shield in front of his body. Clang! The force behind the stab sent him flying into the air. He groaned when he felt his left arm screaming with pain. Ignoring the pain, he twisted his body in midair to land on his feet. Damn! The recoil almost broke my arm. His father didn't even use mana, but the force behind the stab had almost snapped his bones. Lucas stared at his son with a look of astonishment. During that last stab, he didn't hold back in the slightest. It contained the full physical power of a venerable. No ordinary shield should be able to block that, but that's not the most impressive part. Alaric's mastery of the shield is already at the highest level. He didn't want to admit it, but his son already had the skills to protect himself against a venerable. With a deep sigh, he lowered the steel sword and sent a proud smile to his son. I must admit that you already have the ability to protect yourself. I won't dissuade you anymore, but are you really sure about this? Hearing his father's affirmation, Alaric smiled faintly. If we can defeat Arcientis, we can go home early. I miss my younger sister. I want to hold her in my arms. Let's do this, Dad. What else can I say? Lucas shook his head with a wry smile. Several days later, deep in the woods dozens of miles beyond Zerkith, an army of 500,000 soldiers could be seen marching. The intimidating auras emanating from the soldiers scared off the monsters living in the forest. Not one monster dared to get close to them, even those particularly powerful beasts chose to hide in their burrows. Arsientis, the Emperor of Harun, had disguised himself as one of the military officers in this army. He might be targeted by the enemies if he were to show his face, so he used this method. It was beneath him to hide his glorious appearance, but he thought that this was necessary to avoid trouble. Your Majesty, once we get out of this jungle, Zerkith will be within our sight. A voice drifted into his ears. Arsientis turned his head to look at the person who had spoken. It was a middle-aged man with long curly black hair. He had thick eyebrows and a thick messy beard. His appearance might look rough, but this man was the commander of the Imperial Guards, Kynn Greyhound. Is that so? Tell the troops to set up camp. We will attack Zerkith tomorrow, so they must be fully rested. Arsientis spoke, his eyes gleaming with mysterious radiance. Your servant obeys. Kynn respectfully acknowledged the command. Soon, the Harunian troops stopped marching. They began to set up their tents in the middle of the woods. Knowing that there will be war tomorrow, the atmosphere was a bit tense. Unbeknownst to them, there was a figure lurking in the shadows, quietly observing their every move. It was Sikas. He was tasked to determine the composition of the Harunian troops. Most of their troops are cavalrymen, and they also have an aerial unit with over 20,000 members. I need to report this to His Highness so we can make some prep era. His thoughts were cut off when he sensed an overwhelming killing intent locking in on him. They found me. Sikas decisively left when he sensed an unprecedented level of danger. He held his breath and quickly concealed all traces of his mana. Bang! Chapter 521. It is him. Chapter 521. It is him. A deep pit was formed from the spot where he was hiding earlier. Sikas almost died in that moment. If he had been even a split second late, he would have been turned into minced meat. Find him! Don't let him get away! A furious roar suddenly echoed across the forest. The Harunian army was startled, but they quickly sprang into action. The military officers immediately instructed their troops to scour the area. Meanwhile, Arsientis was now seething with rage. He actually missed his target and allowed him to escape. Damn it! Where did that bastard go? He used his spiritual perception to scan the forest, but the target was already nowhere to be found. Who is that guy? Sikas clutched his chest, his face covered in sweat. He managed to escape alive, but the attack grazed his chest and left a deep wound that almost crushed his heart. If it wasn't for his strong life force, he would have already collapsed. There is only one person stronger than Ramondan in Harun. It's definitely him, Arsientis van Harun. I need to report this to His Highness and His Lordship. His chest was bleeding and his face had already turned pale from the blood loss, but Sikas remained calm. Panicking would only make him lose more blood. With agile movements, he jumped from one tree to another. A few hours later, outside Zerkith, numerous defensive structures were already built. There were palisades angled diagonally. There were also other traps like pitfalls and ditches. Everything was set in place. To build these traps, the soldiers worked overtime with almost no rest. At this moment, Alaric was atop the city walls, observing the traps with narrowed eyes. Suddenly, Alaric turned his head and narrowed his eyes to look in a certain direction. Sikas? He could sense Sikas's familiar aura. The latter was intentionally releasing his aura, so the others wouldn't mistake him for an enemy. Something's wrong. He seems injured. Alaric sensed that Sikas's aura was unstable. Call the healers quickly. Sir Sikas is injured, he shouted. Hearing his voice, a few warriors immediately rushed to find the healers. Another group of warriors also stepped out of the gate to help Sikas, but the latter stopped them saying he was fine. When Sikas rejected their help, the warriors didn't know what to do. But sir, you're injured. One of them pointed at his chest. The others also looked concerned, but Sikas didn't bother to respond. He rushed inside the city and was about to jump onto the walls when he saw Alaric standing in front of him. Your Highness! Alaric quickly rushed to his side, grabbing the man's shoulder to support him. What happened? Why are you injured? He was shocked to see Sikas in such a state. He was not even injured when he went to scout Ramondan's troops. Sikas stared at him and replied. It was a mythical knight, one who is much stronger than Ramondan. It's him. I didn't see his face, but I'm sure that it was Arsientis van Harun. Alaric frowned at his words. I understand. You should get yourself treated first. You can tell me the rest later. Sikas's injuries were more urgent, so he quickly brought him to the clinic. While receiving treatment, Sikas told Alaric everything he discovered about the Harunian army. Good job, Sekus. Get some rest. Don't worry about anything else. Alaric left the clinic and went to find his father. He later found Lucas inspecting their artillery ammunition. What happened? Why do you look like that? Lucas raised an eyebrow when he saw Alaric's dark expression. Alaric took a deep breath and explained the situation. Sekus isn't a weak transcendent knight. Even Ramondan couldn't trace him. Lucas thought with a serious look. So he really came. We will proceed as planned. Lucas spoke in a cold voice. Alaric nodded at his father's words. The next day, dark clouds hung over the horizon, and heavy rain fell across the landscape. Standing above the walls, Alaric stared at the gloomy sky and muttered, "The weather seems to be cooperating with us. In this kind of weather, the ground would be muddy, making it harder for even war horses to run. The heavens are on our side," added Lucas, who was standing next to him. In the distance, they could already see the approaching enemy troops, but because of the muddy terrain, their march had been slowed down. "Tell the troops to get ready," Lucas told his son. Nodding his head, Alaric sent a hand signal to the military officers. Everyone sprang into action. The auxiliary troops carried all the artillery ammunition and distributed them to the artillery units. The archers also grabbed an arrow from their quivers and knocked it to their bows. Soon, the Harunian troops stopped just beyond their artillery's range. They remained still for a long while, as if mentally preparing themselves before the battle. In the next moment, the war drums echoed along with the thunderous roars of lightning. The Harunian troops charged, their loud battle cries resonating across the city, giving hope to the local residents. "Fire the catapults and trebuchets. Give them hell," Alaric bellowed. As soon as he gave the command, the artillery units began firing the catapults and trebuchets, releasing massive boulders laced with mana bombs. The Harunian troops fearlessly charged. Some of them quickly fell into the ditches and were impaled by the spikes hidden underneath. Thousands of warriors also fell into the deep pitfalls. Due to the rain, the soil was slippery, which made it harder for them to climb out of the pitfalls. With more soldiers falling into the trap, the first ones to fall were quickly buried underneath them, suffocating them to death. At this moment, the boulders smashed into the ground, flattening hundreds of unlucky warriors. The mana bombs tied to the boulders also exploded, killing thousands of soldiers. Bang! 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 It was a chaotic scene, but the Harunian troops didn't seem to have the intention of retreating. They pressed forward without regard for their lives. Chapter 522. Forcing Arsientis to attack. An hour into the battle, the Estanian army sent its troops to stop the advancing enemy forces. Arsientis coldly watched the battle unfold. "I already received a message from Donovan. I need to retake Zerkith and wait for reinforcements before retaking all the cities that they have conquered." He specifically chose Zerkith since it was the easiest to defend among all the cities that Estania had captured. He also planned to eliminate one venerable on the enemy side to weaken their fighting power. By the time the Veronican army arrived, they would have the upper hand against the Estanian troops. At this moment, he noticed that the Harunian army was struggling to advance. "They are putting up a much stronger resistance than I thought, but once we go past their traps, they will be overwhelmed by our numbers." Arsientis analyzed the situation. Suddenly, he felt a strong fluctuation of mana from the city. Roar! His pupils constricted when he heard the loud, beastly roar. Catastrophe-grade beast. He could already sense the beast's power the moment it released its aura. When did they get a catastrophe-grade beast? He thought about Leroy's golem, but the aura was different compared to the golems. This one was more ferocious, like the blazing sun. A flying beast entered his field of vision. It was so enormous that it cast a huge shadow over the battlefield. "That is the rumored draconic lion of House Silversword." Arsientis furrowed his eyebrows. He realized that this would be a tough battle. Roar! The draconic lion's roar struck fear in the hearts of the Harunian troops, momentarily immobilizing them. The Estanian warriors took this chance to kill the stunned enemies. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of warriors were killed. Soldiers of Harun, snap out of it. Kill the invaders! Arsientis bellowed, unable to contain his fury. Hearing their emperor's voice, the Harunian warriors regained control of their senses. They fiercely fought back. Roar! The draconic lion that was circling above the battlefield swooped down and spewed a mouthful of flames, creating a pillar of fire that engulfed tens of thousands of Harunian warriors. "Ah! Help! I'm burning! Ah! Ah! Kill me!" The screams of the Harunian warriors echoed across the battlefield, making their comrades feel a mixture of terror and fury. Seeing this, Arsientis, who was supposed to stay out of the fight, could no longer sit still. "I need to kill that beast." He glared at the draconic lion, his aura fluctuating intensely. In the next moment, he squeezed his legs, urging his horse to move forward. The war horse neighed before it sprinted with lightning speed. Clip-clop, clop-clop. Even in the muddy terrain, the war horse moved with strong force. Its muscular legs were filled with raw power. Meanwhile, Arcientus was quietly gathering his mana as his horse was gaining momentum. He kept his eyes on the draconic lion, watching its every move. Soon, his sword radiated with power. Feeling the strong vibrations of mana, he immediately swung his sword, releasing a blade energy that sliced through the air. Whoosh! The draconic lion seemed to have sensed his attack. It tilted its body to the side and evaded the blade energy with a swift maneuver. Roar! Arcientus snorted. Just when he was about to release another slash, he sensed danger behind him. He twisted his body and narrowly evaded a sword that was aimed at his neck. Whoosh! Who? He looked at the person who had attacked him and found out that it was a silver-haired, middle-aged man. His features were recognizable, so Arcientus guessed that it was Lucas Silversword, who had recently gained fame after becoming a mythical knight. You must be Lucas Silversword, he muttered. Lucas put some distance between them before he responded with a sarcastic tone. It's an honor to be remembered by your majesty. Arcientus frowned after his identity was exposed. You are not stupid after all. Since you already know who I am, you should be aware of the difference between our strengths. You stand no chance against me. The emperor shook his head with a mocking smile. Lucas smiled faintly. That's true, but I am not fighting you alone. As soon as he said this, a burst of flame shot towards Arcientus. HM? Arcientus swung his sword and destroyed the fireball with his blade energy. Boom! A thick cloud of black smoke rose over the sky. Even if you joined hands with that beast, you are still no match for me. Arcientus sneered while playing with the sword in his hand. Did I say that there are only two of us? Lucas chuckled in response. Hearing this, Arcientus raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? It was then that another figure appeared, riding his horse with a sharp gaze. Turning his head, Arcientus laughed in amusement. Are you saying that this transcendent boy is thinking of fighting me? Your name is Arcientus, right? Alaric stared deeply at him. How dare you casually speak of my name, boy? Arcientus flew into a rage. Alaric let out a smile. Do you know how Ramondan died? He paused deliberately to annoy the Harunian emperor. He was killed by a transcendent knight. Alaric emphasized the last part, which made Arcientus pounce at him. Die, boy! He swung with full force, creating a blade energy that cut through the air with a sharp keening sound. Alaric wasn't flustered. While he was speaking earlier, he was silently pouring mana into his shield in preparation for this very moment. When Arcientus made his move, Alaric immediately activated the shield's engraved ability. Bang! The shield managed to stop the blade energy, but the force sent Alaric flying off from his horse. What? Arcientus was stunned. He put his all into that slash, but the shield remained intact. There was only a deep imprint from the blade energy, but it withstood the destructive power. Suddenly, he saw a sword coming straight at him without warning. Arcientus quickly parried the attack. Clang! Chapter 523. Scylla summons the Death Knight. Clang! After blocking the sword, Arcientus countered with a stab, but Lucas quickly pulled back to evade his attack. How troublesome! Arcientus found himself on the defensive end. The father and son duo and the draconic lion didn't give him the chance to make a countermove. What surprised him was the young transcendent knight. He thought that the kid would collapse after receiving more attacks from him, but after several rounds of battle, Alaric managed to get up on his feet. Is this kid made of steel? How is this possible? His shield is no ordinary equipment, but his mastery of the shield is also at an impressive level. How did he achieve this kind of mastery at his age? This was no longer a genius. This young man was a freak of nature. While they were fighting, the battle between the Estanian army and the Harunian army was becoming increasingly violent. With the advantage in preparation, the Estanian troops had the slight upper hand despite being outnumbered. However, this changed with the sudden appearance of a few people. One of them was Scylla. She summoned an army of death warriors who fought fearlessly on the front lines. To hide the faces of the death warriors, Alaric had them wear the armor worn by the Estanian troops. Because of the chaotic situation on the battlefield, no one noticed their abnormality. The death warriors didn't fear death, so they could perform reckless attacks. As the controller, Scylla wasn't idle. She rode her horse and wielded her sword, valiantly fighting with the Estanian troops. She had an A-rank swordsmanship trait. Although it wasn't on the same level as those fierce generals, it was already strong enough to overwhelm the ordinary warriors. Moreover, she had Butch, Einar, and Fredrin to support her. The four of them dominated the battlefield. Not even the transcendence of the Harunian army could stop them. I will run out of mana soon. We must kill as many enemy commanders as we can before that happens. Scylla sternly shouted. Yes, Dame Scylla. Butch and the others responded. Under her leadership, they led the Estanian troops to press forward. They unleashed a brutal assault that killed thousands of Harunian warriors, including a few of their elites. When the second hour came, Scylla's mana pool had already fallen to half of its original level. Time was running out, so she no longer bothered to save her mana. She unsummoned the Death Warriors to summon a much stronger monster. Cover me, she shouted in a grim voice. Hearing her words, Butch immediately made a hand gesture. Cover Dame Scylla. Don't let the enemies get close. The Estanian warriors encircled her, creating a human wall that prevented the Harunian troops from advancing further. Scylla chanted an eerie mantra which created a gloomy-looking door where a terrifying monster had emerged. It was the Death Knight, a monster on the same level as a peak Transcendent Knight. To hide its evil appearance, Butch and the others immediately draped its body with armor. They also covered the decayed body of its horse with some kind of cloth. Soon, the Death Knight was released. It wielded its lance and destroyed the Harunian warriors who were blocking its path. It was so powerful that even when it was surrounded by thousands of enemies, it still emerged victorious. A few Harunian Transcendent Knights also fought with the Death Knight, but they only lasted a couple of attacks before they perished. The Death Knight was like a meat grinder, killing enemies left and right. 30 minutes after summoning the Death Knight, Scylla's mana pool was already 3/4 empty. Knowing that she would run out of mana soon, she commanded the Death Knight to attack Arcientis, who was busy fighting against 3 enemies. Do everything you can to restrain him, Scylla shouted. Upon hearing her command, the burning embers in the Death Knight's eye sockets flickered. It issued a beast-like roar as it urged its horse to charge towards Arcientis. Arcientis was so occupied in his fight, he didn't even sense that another powerful enemy was approaching. When he sensed the Death Knight, he was already a few seconds late. It jumped from its horse and threw itself into the stunned emperor. Arcientis instinctively swung his sword, but the Death Knight didn't even bother to dodge. It latched onto his body like an octopus, firmly locking Arcientis with its strong arms. Alaric and Lucas didn't waste any time when they saw this. They rushed out and attacked simultaneously. Arcientis's pupils constricted in surprise. Are they not afraid of killing their own comrade? Get off me, you dumb bastard! He roared as he tore the Death Knight's arm through sheer physical strength. It was then that he realized the unusual nature of the Death Knight. This guy isn't human. After freeing himself, he broke the Death Knight's neck and tore its head off. He then blocked the swords coming right at him. Clang! Clang! Lucas and Alaric were shocked. Even in that difficult situation, Arcientis still managed to block their attacks. How dare you collude with the demonic forces? Filthy scums! You will face divine punishment! Arcientis roared, his eyes burning with rage. He was about to swing his sword when he felt a breeze coming from behind. Turning his head, he saw the draconic lion brandishing its sharp claws as it descended from the sky. Roar! Arcientis hastily blocked its claws. Clang! However, the beast suddenly opened its gaping mouth and spat out a breath of flames. Arcientis failed to react on time and was engulfed in the flames. Ah! Despite the mana protecting his body, Arcientis felt a burning sensation in his skin. It was so hot that it made him scream. Gritting his teeth, he took a quick turn and swung his sword. Whoosh! His slash left a long gush on the draconic lion's body. The pain forced the beast to retreat into the air. Roar! Breathing heavily, Arcientis staggered. Half of his armor had melted from the blazing flames. He even had to take off his helmet, forcing him to reveal his face, which now sported severe burn marks. You will pay for this. Chapter 524. Arcientis versus everybody. Arcientis stimulated his energy core. His aura was fluctuating with tremendous energy. His hair fluttered with the wind as he injected mana into his sword. He was furious. He had never received this kind of beating in his life. His sword radiated with intense energy as he swung with all his might. Whoosh! Seeing this, Alaric's face fell. He was uncertain whether he could block this blade energy, but for the sake of their victory, he gritted his teeth and chose to take it head-on. I can handle this, he shouted to his father. Hearing his words, Lucas only hesitated for a moment before making his move towards Arcientis. Right at this moment, Alaric stepped forward to block the blade energy, allowing his father to launch a strike. Bang! Lucas didn't know if his son was all right after taking the blow. He was worried, but he knew that he couldn't waste this chance. While Arcientis was still feeling the recoil of his own power, Lucas suddenly appeared in front of him and swung his sword. Die, Arcientis! Lucas roared, his face filled with anger. If something happens to my son, I will cut your corpse into pieces. Arcientis was about to dodge when he realized that something was clinging to his legs. He looked down and saw the headless Death Knight, grabbing onto him, preventing him from moving. "Shit! Let go of me, of you filthy demonic beast!" He cursed as he repeatedly stabbed the beast with his sword. However, the Death Knight stubbornly held onto him, unwilling to let go. With the Death Knight clutching onto his legs, Arsientis was forced to block Lucas's sword. Taking a deep breath, he prepared himself for the impact. "I am Arsientis van Haroon. I won't fall here." Clang! Their swords clashed heavily, causing sparks to fly all over the place. Lucas was much weaker than him, but because of the Death Knight, he couldn't properly balance himself. Arsientis's mana shield broke apart, and Lucas's sword struck his armor with immense force. Bang! The mithril armor caved in under the impact, and he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Arsientis slammed into the ground and rolled several times before eventually stopping. He was in a mess, but he still managed to pick himself up with great difficulty. Underneath his mithril armor, his chest was bleeding profusely from a large cut that stretched from his left shoulder down to his right hip. To stop the bleeding, he injected his mana into the wound. Damn it! I almost died there. If it weren't for his mithril armor, that slash might have taken his life. Arsientis lifted his head, his eyesight obscured by the blood trickling down from his forehead. He could see Lucas urgently running towards the young Transcendent Knight who had gone unconscious after taking a blow from him. I should get out of here while his attention is somewhere else. The thought crossed his mind, but before he even turned around, a beastly roar drifted into his ears. Roar! Shit! He looked up and saw the draconic lion descending towards him, brandishing its claws with its huge mouth wide open. Is it going to spew flames again? He quickly activated his domain, controlling the earth around him to form an earthen wall. Rumble! To his surprise, the draconic lion bypassed his earthen wall and swung its sharp claws with a mighty roar. Whoosh! Arsientis hastily controlled the earth to form an earthen armor to protect his body. However, the draconic lion's claws penetrated through the earthen armor and pierced his chest. KHSHK. Arsientis grimaced. Bearing with the pain, he grabbed the beast's leg and slammed it to the ground with a shoulder throw. He then lifted his sword, intending to stab its neck, but it suddenly spat out a breath of flames that forced him to retreat. Roar! What a troublesome beast! He frowned, his face covered in sweat. I need to leave now. He looked around and found out that Lucas was still checking the state of the young Transcendent Knight. Now is my chance. Stop right there. A calm voice echoed behind him. Turning his head, he saw 4 people. 3 were Transcendent Knights and the other one was a 3-ringed beast soulmaster. Seeing them, Arsientis furrowed his eyebrows. Normally, people at this level were nothing to him. He could crush them with sheer physical power, but it was different now. He was gravely injured and he was using his mana to stop the bleeding on his chest. Surrender and we will give you a quick death. The one who had spoken was the only woman in the group. You think mere transcendence like you can stop me? If you don't want to die, get out of my way. Arsientis tried to intimidate them with his aura. Scylla stared deeply at him and sneered. If you were at your peak state, we would have believed your words, but looking at you now, I think even an elite knight could kill you. Arsientis's face darkened. He felt humiliated. Since you are asking for death, I will grant you your wish. He snorted as he charged towards them with quick and heavy strides. With a swift move, he ferociously brandished his sword at the group. Whoosh! Sir Fredrin! Scylla shouted. Leave it to me. Fredrin immediately stepped forward and slammed his shield to the ground as he activated its engraved ability to its full power. Meanwhile, the other 3 supported him from behind, injecting mana into his body. In the next moment, Arsientis's blade energy struck Fredrin's shield. It held on for a few seconds before it cracked and broke apart. The residual force from the blade energy slammed into the 4 transcendents and viciously sent them flying. Fredrin, who took the most damage, fell unconscious, while the other 3 got up with various wounds across their bodies. Persistent fools! Arsientis glared as he slowly approached them with his sword in hand. Chapter 525. Pursuing the escaping Arsientis. Your Majesty! We are here to help. A large group of Harunian warriors rushed towards them. Seeing this, Arsientis was relieved. His face had already gone pale since he had temporarily stopped supplying mana to his chest, which resulted in severe blood loss. The Harunian warriors immediately surrounded the injured emperor, protecting him from all directions. Roar! A beastly roar suddenly resounded from above, draining the blood from their faces. They were horrified. This was a catastrophe-grade beast, a powerful monster that had already killed tens of thousands of their comrades. Facing this kind of beast, even the brave warriors of Harun were terrified. At this moment, the draconic lion swooped down and brandished its claws, killing multiple warriors at once. Roar! Don't fight it. We must retreat for now, Arsientis shouted anxiously. His mana was dwindling down. If he stopped supplying mana to his chest, he would definitely collapse. Even a mythical knight couldn't survive a major blood loss. Yes, your majesty. Hearing his command, the Harunian warriors retreated. Scylla and the other two didn't allow them to escape. They pursued them relentlessly, like wolves unwilling to let go of their prey. While Arsientis was trying to escape, Lucas kneeled right beside Alaric, his face filled with concern. Alaric's heart had temporarily stopped beating, but it fortunately returned to life after he injected mana into his body. My son, please wake up. If I lose you here, the result of this battle will be meaningless. Lucas muttered as he continued to inject mana into Alaric's body. Suddenly, Alaric's eyes sprang open. Cough, cough. Blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. What happened? Alaric grabbed his head, feeling disoriented. Lucas let out a sigh of relief. He then smacked his head and said with a stern look, I will punish you later. Get up. The battle isn't over yet. Rubbing his head, Alaric grabbed his father's hand and lifted himself. He turned his head and saw Arsientis escaping with a large group of Harunian soldiers. He also saw Scylla and the others chasing after them. Seeing this, Alaric no longer wasted time. Zephyr! He called out, his voice echoing through the battlefield. The draconic lion issued an excited roar. It turned around and landed in front of him with a whoosh. Roar! Alaric looked at his father and nodded. Let's go, Dad. We still have an unfinished job. Lucas nodded. The two jumped onto Zephyr's back. The draconic lion then flew straight into the air and chased Arsientis, who was now riding a horse. Bring us down, Zephyr! Alaric urged the beast. Upon hearing his words, the draconic lion free-fell towards Arsientis. Whoosh! Protect his majesty. Don't let the Estanian dogs get close. The Harunian soldiers defended Arsientis against the three pursuing transcendents. They didn't even hesitate to use their bodies just to buy time for the Emperor to escape. Hundreds of them had already fallen, but they had no intentions of backing down. Sir Einar, Sir Butch, we are pushing in. Scylla only had a small amount of mana left, so she planned to go all out before her energy core was emptied. The two transcendent knights understood her intentions. They stimulated their energy cores and fearlessly pounced towards the Harunian warriors. Move out of the way! The two shouted. The Harunian soldiers tried to block them, but they were powerless against the two formidable warriors. Screams of desperation and fear echoed along with the sounds of weapons clashing. With Butch and Einar paving the way for her, Scylla gathered mana into her sword, instilling it with corrosive properties. This was her SS rank corrosion integrated monster trait. It was also her most powerful ability. She rarely used it because of its potent power, but the situation forced her. Black substance covered her sword, slowly corroding it. If it wasn't for her mana protecting it from the corrosion, her relic-level sword would have already turned into liquid metal. Suddenly, she leaped forward, bypassing the Harunian soldiers to attack Arsientis. Whoosh! Arsientis felt a sense of danger behind him. He instinctively swung his sword, somehow deflecting Scylla's sneak attack. Clang! However, the corrosive power slowly corroded his sword. What the hell is this? He quickly pulled his sword. He could hear a continuous hissing sound from the blackened part of the blade. What kind of strange power was that? It almost corroded my mithril sword. He looked at the woman who had attacked him with some lingering fear and repulsion. It must be you, the one who summoned that filthy demonic creature. I don't know what you are talking about. Scylla responded with a snort, refusing to admit. Just as Arsientis was about to say something, he felt an overwhelming energy from above. He looked up and saw the draconic lion swooping down upon him. It's them. He saw two people on its back, including the young transcendent knight who was supposed to be unconscious. Damn it! He decisively activated his domain. He then wrapped his body with earthen armor, while also conjuring sharp spikes to attack the incoming beast. You are not getting away, Arsientis. You must die here today. Lucas roared as he jumped off Zephyr's back. He released a wind blade with a mighty swing from his sword. The wind blade collided with the earthen spikes, causing a multitude of explosions. Bang! 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 Arsientis thought that he had gotten away, but he found himself being yanked off his horse by a massive paw. The earthen armor protected him, but he was still thrown away like a rag doll. He quickly twisted his body in midair to land stably on the ground. His face visibly turned paler as the gaping wound on his chest began to bleed profusely. He quickly stopped the bleeding, but this also forced him to cancel his domain. I should have waited for Donovan. He regretted taking action. All the sounds around him were suddenly muted when he was faced with this crucial moment of life and death. He saw Lucas and the young Transcendent Knight rushing towards him in slow motion. He also saw the draconic lion pouncing at him while brandishing its sharp claws. So this is where I, Arcientis van Haroon, will perish. Chapter 526. Big rewards for a remarkable achievement. Arcientis stood still with a regretful smile on his face. If only I hadn't attacked Estania. In the next moment, Alaric's sword stabbed into his chest and Lucas's sword decapitated his head with a slash. The draconic lion's sharp claws then crushed his headless body. The Emperor of Haroon, Arcientis van Haroon, died in the most tragic manner. The soldiers of Haroon were stunned, unable to react after seeing him die. His Majesty is dead? No way. They couldn't believe it. The glorious dragon of the nation and the most powerful man of Haroon died just like that. Looking at the gloomy-faced Haroonian soldiers, Alaric raised his sword and shouted, "Glory to Estania!" Hearing his words, the Estanian warriors echoed him. Glory to Estania! Glory to Estania! The Haroonian army still had over 300,000 warriors, but they no longer had the will to fight. Most of them just stood listlessly as they looked at the gloomy sky. Some of them even collapsed to the ground, crying their hearts out. The loud cheers of the Estanian army only made them even gloomier. Warriors of Haroon, your emperor has already perished. Surrender and you will be spared. Lucas took the chance to seal their victory. Surrender and you will be spared. The Haroonian soldiers hesitated momentarily, but a few of them threw their weapons and kneeled to the ground. I surrender. Please spare us. One by one, the Haroonian soldiers raised their arms and kneeled. However, there was also a large group of loyal soldiers who refused to surrender. They raised their weapons and charged towards the Estanian warriors. I will serve you again in my next life, your majesty. We will never yield. Another battle erupted, but these loyal Haroonian soldiers were quickly put down by the Estanian army. The battle only lasted half an hour before all the loyal Haroonian soldiers were killed. Seeing their comrades die, the ones who had surrendered were filled with remorse, guilt, and grief. It's finally over. Alaric looked at the battlefield with a sigh. Mission complete. Rewards: 2,500 battle points, 150 stat points, 750 EXP, random equipment card X1. You have completed the mission with exemplary results. A bonus reward will be given for this remarkable achievement. You received 1,000 EXP, 2,500 battle points, catastrophe grade steed card X1. Alaric was dumbfounded. The mission stipulated that he had to conquer 6 cities. This meant that Leonard's troops had already captured Nakalub. That guy is really something. Although Nakalub didn't have a venerable at the helm, the city was surrounded by a body of water, making it hard for ordinary troops to besiege it. The only way to conquer Nakalub was through naval warfare or aerial attack. Alaric didn't know how Leonard did it, but it no longer mattered. The most important thing was that he had completed his mission and they had eliminated the Emperor of Haroon. With a look of excitement, he inspected his attributes. Alaric's Silversword, Transcendent, Knight, EXP, 3,233, 5,000/5,000, Potential, SS, Traits, Swordsmanship, L, Ruthless Slaughterer, SS, Shield Mastery, SS, Supreme Regeneration, S, Horseback Riding, A, Close Combat, A, Sixth Sense, A, Appraisals, B, Hunting, C, Tracking, C, Monster Affinity, C, Mana Gathering, C, Archery, D, Strength, 500, Stamina, 500, Agility, 500, Vitality, 391, Endurance, 392, Mana, 430, Battle Points, 21,330, 25,000, Stat Points, 30, 180. Requirements for the next advancement: 5,000 EXP, 500 in all attributes, and 25,000 battle points. I already fulfilled my EXP and battle point requirements. I just need to max out all my attributes to advance to the next level. He was already half a step away from becoming a venerable, and the thought of standing on the same level as them almost made him scream with joy. Without further hesitation, he distributed the stat points he received. Endurance, 392, 500. Vitality, 391, 469. Stat points, 180, a 0. After distributing all his stat points, only his vitality and mana weren't at max level. Do you want to use your random equipment card? Yes. No. Seeing this notification, Alaric unhesitatingly clicked no. He would deal with his rewards later. Alaric, how should we handle those soldiers? Lucas's voice suddenly drifted into his ears, interrupting his thoughts. Alaric closed the system screen and looked at his father. He pondered for a moment before he replied. With the number of troops we have here, it will be difficult to handle this many war prisoners. How about we send them to the 6 cities under our control and have them repair all the damage caused by the war? Lucas furrowed his eyebrows. That is a good suggestion, but escorting them separately would require a large number of troops. We just have to tie the stronger warriors in mithril chains. Given the current situation, I don't think they will continue resisting. Alaric responded. I see. Lucas nodded, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. I will make the arrangements. You should get yourself checked. Alaric saluted with a faint smile. Yes, my lord. Lucas shook his head and waved his hand. You may go. I will take care of things here. Alaric bid his father farewell and left. He didn't call Zephyr. The draconic lion being there would serve as a deterrent to prevent the war prisoners from having other thoughts. As he was walking, he later found a warhorse owned by a Harunian general. The horse's body was covered in cuts and stab wounds, but it still stood proudly. You got lucky too, huh? Alaric mumbled as he stroked the horse's blood-stained mane. He jumped onto the horse, making it emit a sound of protest. Relax, buddy. I'm not going to hurt you. He injected mana into the horse's body to help it regenerate. A moment later, he lightly squeezed his legs and urged the horse to move slowly. On his way to the city, he saw the corpses of the dead warriors from both armies. Some of them were no longer recognizable. He hardened his heart and quickly looked away. I only did it for myself, for my family, and for my country. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I will pray that you find your peace. Chapter 527. News about the Veronican reinforcements. Upon entering the city, Alaric had himself checked at the clinic run by Estanian medical practitioners. A few of your highness's ribs were broken, but our healers have already reattached them. Your left arm is also fractured, but it's not a big deal. Even without our healers' help, it can recover on its own. We have already prescribed your highness medicine. You just need to follow the prescription and get a few weeks of rest. During this time, I suggest that your highness refrain from strenuous physical activities. A medical personnel member handed Alaric the prescription. Thank you. While taking the piece of paper, Alaric nodded. We pray for your highness's speedy recovery. Alaric didn't stay for long and left the clinic. He headed straight to his father's mansion and locked himself in his room. The catastrophe-grade steed card can wait, but there shouldn't be a problem with using the random equipment card. He thought with a look of anticipation. Do you want to use your random equipment card? Yes. No. This time Alaric clicked, yes. Suddenly, motes of light floated above him, looking incredibly mystical. Congratulations. You received a mythical-grade breastplate. Mythical breastplate. When worn, it protects the wearer's heart from any physical attack. When receiving physical damage, a mana shield is formed around the body that reduces all kinds of damage by 50%. When the heart stops after receiving fatal damage, a strong life force will be activated to resuscitate the wearer. Alaric's eyes widened upon seeing the breastplate's information. It was the most amazing piece of defensive equipment he had ever seen. Just wearing it was equivalent to having another life. What a catch! He laughed as he grabbed the breastplate floating above his head. It looked ordinary on the surface, just like a common steel breastplate, but beneath its ordinary exterior, Alaric knew that it hid a terrifying material that was much stronger than mithril. With a beaming smile, he eagerly wore the breastplate. As soon as it touched his skin, he felt a wave of warmth that enveloped his entire body. This sensation gave him a strong feeling of protection, as if he were impervious to any kind of attack. I already feel it. Speaking of which, this is the first time I received a mythical equipment. This one should be a few grades higher than a relic level 1. I will test its defensive abilities tomorrow. For now, I should take some rest. The battle really drained my energy. Without removing his breastplate, Alaric went to bed and quickly drifted into sleep. 10 days after Arsientis' death, everyone in Harun had already heard of the emperor's demise. Some residents mourned, while others rejoiced. The mixed reactions from the residents were due to Arsientis' unpredictable nature. He was a strong ruler who gave them a sense of protection, but he was also a greedy man who wanted to rule the surrounding nations. His hubris led to his own downfall. At this moment, Alaric was in the training ground performing his daily exercises. He had stayed in the mansion in the last few days, so he was unaware of what was happening outside. With the prescription from the medical practitioners and some light physical activity, Alaric gradually recovered to his peak state. Whoosh! Whoosh! He was already performing the last sword exercise and his face was covered in thick beads of sweat. After making the last slash, Alaric received a notification from the system. You received 20 battle points. You received 3 EXP. You received 3 stat points. In the last 10 days, he hadn't missed a single day of his daily mission, so he had already collected 30 stat points. He wasn't in a hurry to distribute them, so he immediately closed the system screen. I just need 2 more weeks to fulfill my attribute requirements. Alaric smiled faintly. Suddenly, he heard a series of footsteps. Your Highness, we received word from our scouts. A warrior rushed to his side with an urgent look. Hearing this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Is it them? He asked. The warrior nodded with a solemn look. Yes, Your Highness. Donovan is back with the reinforcements from Veronica. Alaric rose to his feet. Where are they headed to? He started walking, so the warrior followed him and replied. Based on our scouts' observations, the Veronican reinforcements are heading towards Midgard. With the speed of their march, they will arrive at the city in 3 to 5 days depending on the weather. Alaric frowned. How many soldiers do they have? The numbers are uncertain, but our scouts said that they have roughly over 500,000 soldiers. There could be more, but we are still verifying this. Also, our scouts mentioned that they felt 3 incredibly strong auras. Based on their descriptions, I think they spotted the Venerables from Veronica. Alaric's face darkened. Including Donovan, the reinforcement troops had 4 Venerables. On the other hand, only Ignatius was stationed in Midgard and his condition was still unstable. I can bring Dad and the others to Midgard, but we would still be at a disadvantage. If only Lord Dominic and Lord Leroy could get there on time. He silently calculated in his mind. We could probably make it work, but could Zephyr handle it? The Draconic Lion also received significant injuries in the last battle against Arciantus's troops. He was worried that it couldn't handle a non-stop flight in its current state. You may leave. Alaric dismissed the warrior and went to find his father. 45 minutes later, he found Lucas overseeing the repair of the road outside the city. The recent war destroyed a huge part of the road. Lucas ordered its reconstruction, but due to the lack of resources, they still hadn't finished the project. My lord! Alaric saluted his father, his face looking stern. Seeing his expression, Lucas could already guess what it was about. So you've already heard of it? Alaric nodded. We can still make it to Midgard if we leave now, my lord. Chapter 528. Heading back to Midgard. Lucas patted Alaric's shoulder with a faint smile on his face. What do you mean? If we don't go there now, Midgard will be captured by the Veronican army and all our troops will be killed. Alaric was starting to get anxious. He left Ivana there. Ignatius, Galliner, and a few other powerful warriors were there, but most of them were still recovering from their wounds. Furthermore, the Veronican army had 500,000 troops, several times more than their numbers. Lucas chuckled. Relax, son. Let me explain. Taking a deep breath, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows as he nodded his head. He is there. His Majesty himself is there to handle the situation. I just got the letter from His Majesty. Lucas grinned. Hearing this, Alaric's eyes widened in disbelief. His Majesty came in person? John Philip Estania, the ruler of the Estanian Empire, was one of the most renowned mythical knights in the surrounding nations. It was because of his presence that no nation dared to attack Estania over the last few decades. The only reason Harun dared to invade was because of the rumors about his failing health. He suddenly recalled what his birth mother had told him back then. She said that the emperor was most likely faking his illness to lure their enemies into attacking Estania. It was all a ruse, a plot he had carefully planned out to punish the imperial family of Harun for forcing his sister, Jade Christine Estania, into marrying their crown prince. Thinking about this, Alaric felt a wave of complex emotions. That's right. His Majesty should have already met with Donovan and the Venerables of the Veronican army by now. With him there, they wouldn't dare do anything. Lucas nodded. Alaric frowned. But they have 4 Venerables on their side. Will His Majesty be fine on his own? No matter how strong the Emperor was, could he fight against 4 Venerables? Even someone as strong as Arciantus perished after being ganged up on. Lucas's expression suddenly turned serious as he replied. Son, the Emperor isn't as simple as you think. The only way to become a Venerable is for one to control their own domain. Without comprehending a domain, a peak transcendent knight will never advance no matter how experienced they are in battle. Alaric was confused. Why was his father telling him this? Lucas continued. The stronger your domain, the more powerful you will become once you advance to the realm of Venerables. In His Majesty's case, he mastered 2 domains. The first one was during his advancement to the mythical knight realm, and the second one was something he had comprehended later on. His Majesty mastered 2 domains? Alaric was stunned. His father, who was recognized as a rare talent, only comprehended the wind domain. As for Alaric himself, he was a special case. He only mastered the ice domain at the transcendent realm because of the system. Looking at his stunned face, Lucas chuckled while shaking his head. It's hard to believe, but it's true. You will understand once you see him in person. Alaric fell silent. Lucas didn't disturb him. Even he found it unbelievable. If he hadn't witnessed it in person, he would have thought that it was impossible. A venerable having 2 domains only happened in stories or myths. I must go there, my lord. I won't rest easy until I see them safe. Alaric spoke after a moment of silence. Regardless of whether the emperor was there, he wanted to make sure that everyone was unharmed. Lucas didn't stop him. With a stern look, he reminded his son. All right, if you happen to see His Majesty, you must be respectful. Do you understand? Yes, my lord. Alaric nodded. You may leave. I will handle everything here. Lucas waved his hand. Alaric bid his father farewell and immediately went back to the mansion to make preparations. While he was sorting his personal items, a notification appeared in front of him. Mission: Conquering Haroun II. Mission difficulty: Easy. With the death of Arsientus van Haroun, the Harounian Empire is now in a precarious position. Thieving wolves and hungry hyenas are eyeing this massive piece of land, wishing to take a bite of it. To prevent your spoils from getting stolen, turn Haroun into a subordinate nation. Rewards: 300 battle points, 30 EXP, 30 stat points. Penalty for failure: Haroun will be conquered by other nations. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. The mission difficulty was easy, but he knew that things could change depending on the circumstances. The priority now is to confirm the status of everyone in Midgard. He closed the cyan screen. After making his preparations, Alaric stepped out of the mansion and summoned Sikas and the others who had followed him here in Zerkith. The 5 transcendents soon gathered at the empty space in front of the mansion. Everyone, I have no time to explain, so I will make this quick. Alaric stared at their faces. Sikas and Fredrin, who had sustained the most injuries in the last war, had already recovered. We are heading back to Midgard, he announced. The 5 transcendents nodded. Seeing this, Alaric turned around and made a whistling sound. Roar! Zephyr's roar echoed from the distance, reacting to his call. In the next moment, the draconic lion emerged from the sky and descended in front of them. Whoosh! Let's go! Alaric jumped onto Zephyr's back. The 5 transcendents quickly followed. Zephyr flapped its wings, roaring majestically as it soared into the air. Roar! Up in the sky, Alaric was still feeling a bit restless. Please be safe, everyone. Your Highness, can you tell us what happened? Fredrin's voice suddenly drifted into his ears. Without turning his head, Alaric calmly replied. I received a report that the Veronican army is heading to Midgard. His lordship told me that someone is there to handle the situation, but I need to go see it myself. Hearing this, they no longer asked him anything. Chapter 529. An Unexpected Visitor. Meanwhile in Midgard, Ivana was inside Alaric's study, going over various documents related to the affairs of the city. Luckily I have you here. Otherwise, it would have taken me months to complete everything. The elven princess sighed as she looked at the beautiful Veronican woman sitting adjacent to her desk. It was Matilda, the woman who had recently been promoted as Alaric's assistant. Ivana held strong prejudice against her, but after interacting with her in the last few days, they became a lot closer, and she now considered Matilda as her friend. Matilda lifted her head and smiled at her. You overpraise me, miss. With your skills, you can handle these things well even without me. Ivana chuckled at her words. You are getting better at flattering people. Did you learn that from him? I'm speaking the truth, miss, Matilda replied cautiously. Matilda, you don't need to be formal. There is no one here, so you can speak freely with me. Ivana sighed. I wouldn't dare. I may have become His Highness' assistant, but I am still a servant of House Silversword. Please forgive me for disobeying you, Mississippi. Matilda replied with a look of difficulty. Fine. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Ivana didn't force her. At this moment, a series of knocks on the door interrupted their conversation. Knock, knock, knock. Ivana turned her head and cleared her throat. You may come in. Creak. Galliner stepped inside the room and lowered his head. Miss, someone is outside the mansion claiming to be a servant of His Highness. I already sent someone to verify their identity. Do you want me to send them here once their identity has been confirmed? Hearing this, Ivana raised an eyebrow. Send them here, but don't let them bring any weapons. She answered. I understand. Galliner nodded and left right away. After he left, Ivana leaned on her seat. Who could it be? Matilda suddenly thought of someone and mumbled with uncertainty. Could it be her? Hearing this, Ivana stared at her inquisitively. Do you know something? Matilda shook her head. I'm not sure, miss. Do you remember the servant who was always with me? The female knight with big breasts. She described the physical characteristics of the person in her mind. Ivana thought for a moment and she seemed to have recalled a certain individual. I seem to remember someone like that. Wasn't she a knight of Haroun? What was her name again? Celine. Her name is Celine. Matilda smiled faintly. Ivana raised an eyebrow and asked, "Can we trust her?" Matilda took a deep breath and responded. When His Highness left Estania to march here with the Estanian army, Celine left North Pine Town to look for her family here in Haroun. They should have escaped the war. She must have come here after hearing that His Highness is here. Miss, I have only known Celine for a few months. She was forced into slavery after their army lost in the Battle of Ackland Pass. At first, she didn't like the thought of becoming a slave to a prince of Estania, but she gradually accepted her fate. I don't know what happened to her since she left North Pine Town. Why don't we talk with her and see it for ourselves? All right. Ivana wasn't worried about her safety. With Galliner around, nothing would happen unless the enemy was a venerable. Half an hour later, Galliner stepped inside the room with a woman dressed in a knight's uniform. Looking at the female knight, Ivana beckoned to her and pointed at the seat in front of Matilda. "Sit down and tell me what's going on." Celine looked around the room, but she didn't find the familiar figure she was looking for. She saw Matilda, who was waving enthusiastically at her, to which she responded with a forced smile. After taking her seat, she told them her story. According to Celine, she managed to warn her family before the war began. She took them to a secluded village to avoid the war. When she heard about the situation in Midgard, she immediately headed here with her family, hoping to bring them back with her to North Pine Town. Ivana stared deeply at her. This woman was pitiful. She was a war prisoner who was forced into slavery. With a light smile, Ivana said, "It must have been a rough journey. Alaric is still not here, so I will arrange an accommodation for you and your family. As for whether you can return to North Pine Town, I will try to speak with him about it." Hearing this, Celine felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, miss. Thank you very much." Just to get here, they encountered numerous obstacles. There was even a time when she almost lost a member of her family when they encountered a group of pillagers. They only managed to get away after she killed them all. Unknowingly, she found herself crying. Matilda quickly rushed to her side and hugged her tightly. "It's all right. Everything will be fine, Celine. You did a good job coming here safely." Ivana watched this scene with a complicated sigh. Suddenly, Galliner, who was standing motionless at the door, rushed to the window, with an alarmed expression. The ladies sensed his unusual reaction and became worried. "Sir Galliner, what happened?" asked Ivana as she rose to her feet. Galliner narrowed his eyes and replied with a grim look. "I sense a powerful aura approaching Midgard, and it's moving so fast." Hearing this, the ladies panicked. Ivana was the first one to calm down. "We need to alert the army. We need to inform them at once." "Hold on. This aura." Galliner raised a hand, signaling them to wait. A moment later, his expression eased up as he said, "It's them. His Highness is back with the others." As if to confirm his words, they heard a beastly roar coming from the distance. Roar! The eyes of the ladies lit up upon hearing this. Chapter 530. Alaric returns to Midgard. The ladies rushed out of the mansion. Upon coming out, they saw that a small crowd of people had already gathered outside. "His Highness is back. Welcome back, Your Highness." Looking at the draconic lions circling above them, everyone cheered excitedly. Ivana heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Alaric standing on the draconic lion's back. A moment later, the beast descended with a mighty roar. Roar! Alaric jumped off of Zephyr's back and smiled faintly at Ivana, who was in the crowd. The two didn't say anything, but it seemed like their eyes were relaying each other's thoughts. "Thank you, Aru." Seeing that everyone was unharmed, Alaric thanked the benevolent god, Aru, from the bottom of his heart. He warmly greeted everyone who had come to welcome their arrival. He then approached Ivana and sent her a knowing look. "Let's talk in my study." Hearing this, Ivana nodded her head. "All right." The crowd gradually dispersed, and they immediately sent the news about Alaric's return to the whole city. On their way to the study room, Alaric tapped Galliner's shoulder and whispered to him, "Thank you for keeping everyone safe." Galliner lowered his head. "I'm only doing my job, Your Highness." Alaric smiled at his words. Soon, they arrived at the study and he invited everyone to come inside. "Take your seats." He motioned to the group to sit down. Upon taking his seat, Alaric finally noticed Celine in the group. Based on the condition of her armor, it looked like she had gone through a lot of trouble on her way to Midgard. "Since you chose to come here, I guess you have already made your decision." He spoke to the female knight. Celine knew that he was talking about her, so she immediately responded with a nod. "Yes, Your Highness. I have already made up my mind. I wish to bring my family with me to North Pine Town. I hope Your Highness accepts them as residents of the town." She lowered her head respectfully. Alaric stared deeply at her. "I can allow that, but you will be responsible for their actions." Celine could be trusted, but the same could not be said of her family. They might be loyal to Haroon, so he would place them under surveillance for a while. The female knight was ecstatic. Her eyes lit up and she quickly rose to her feet and bowed to him. "Thank you, Your Highness." With a faint smile, Alaric waved his hand. "I will arrange a new post for you, but we will talk about that later." Having her as a maidservant was too degrading for a knight. With her skills, she could serve as a company commander for the household. Celine felt a wave of relief. She thought that Alaric wouldn't accept her again. After dealing with her matter, Alaric turned her gaze to Ivana. "I heard that His Majesty has arrived to negotiate with the Veronican army. Do you have any news about the situation?" When he mentioned this, Ivana nodded with a serious look. "It's true. The negotiations started yesterday, but there is still no word about the results. Do you want me to send someone to inquire about the status of the negotiations?" Alaric shook his head. "There's no need. I will go there myself. Just send me someone who can take me there." He wanted to see the emperor with his own eyes. After hearing his father's praises for the emperor, he had a strong urge to use his appraisal on him. "Sir Galliner knows the way. He can take you there." Ivana looked at Galliner while she was saying this. Hearing this, Alaric sent Galliner a look. "Galliner, prepare the horses. We will leave at once." Zephyr had flown non-stop at full speed, so he decided to go there on a horse. Galliner acknowledged the command with a salute. "Your subordinate obeys." He then turned around and left with haste. After he left, Alaric stared at Ivana and said with a smile, "Thank you for managing the city. I knew I could count on you." Ivana smiled while shaking her head. "I didn't do it on my own. Matilda helped me a lot." When she heard Ivana mention her name, Matilda bowed and said, "Miss Ivana did most of the work. I only supported her at the sidelines." Alaric knew that she was just being humble, but he didn't bother to comment. "You two did a great job. You can tell me what reward you want once I return from my trip." Ivana didn't say anything and just smiled at him. On the other hand, Matilda's eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. He chatted briefly with the ladies before bidding them farewell. "I must go now. Be careful on your travels, Your Highness." "Stay safe, Your Highness." He left the mansion and saw Galliner waiting for him outside, holding the reins of two warhorses. Alaric randomly chose a horse and jumped on its back. "Let's go," he said after placing his feet on the stirrups. "Hiya." He looked back and saw everyone waving goodbye at him. He also saw Ivana in the crowd, standing motionless with a reluctant expression. Alaric took a deep breath and moved his eyes forward. Several miles away from Midgard, a temporary camp was set up. Various Veronican flags could be seen, erected all over the camp. Outside this camp was an army composed of over 300,000 warriors who bore the insignia of the Estanian Empire in their armor. At this moment, inside the largest tent in the camp, a meeting was being held between two opposing factions. On one side was Donovan Cleves, now together with the three venerables from Veronica. Meanwhile, there was only one person on the opposite side of the table, but his lone presence overwhelmed the other group. He was a middle-aged man with long blonde hair and a pair of ocean blue eyes. His very presence was filled with inviolable authority. "Donovan, I have given you enough time to think. I believe it is about time for me to hear your answer." Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.